Good morning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. There's that bell again. Good morning and welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Loren Michaels Harris, and ooh, I forgot to put my wedding ring on. I was gonna be in trouble. So anyway, how's everybody doing? I know it's kind of hard. It's a Tuesday, and the weather was so beautiful this past weekend. I was telling you guys yesterday if you were here with us, and if you weren't, where the hell were you? We went out this weekend and did our first little sampling, if you will, of reintegrating into some semblance of a life outside of this house. So Brian and I went to Geneva, a little town here in Illinois, where there's lots of these little cute shops and great places to eat. And I mean, we had everything but a tape measure to make sure those tables. I mean, we're not playing with it, right? So we did, and then the scary thing happened. This lady and her daughter, we were talking socially distance, like hi, da 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 da, and they're like, "Come on over," and we were like, "What?" You know. Um, so we compromised. We scooted our table a little closer. That was it. So today, things are loosening up around the country as we speak. Things are opening up. Dates are coming up July 1st. There's a big change here in Illinois. And I wanted us to talk today with someone in the know. And he's been here before. He's our resident DR, MD. And I'm talking to, oh, here's the shirt. To Your Health with Dr. G. Dr. Mark Gomez is back today. And I have an entire list of questions, and I'm sure you guys may have one or two or 50 yourselves. So get them ready, and he'll do his best to answer them. The reason I love Mark so much is because he's an overall great guy. Number one, I love his wife. He has two beautiful children, and he is just so vested in getting up close and personal with all of us. And it's like, it pays to have an attorney friend, it pays to have an accountant friend, and it pays to have a medical doctor friend. I have some questions for him, and he's back to give us some updates. Today, I really wanted to talk about some of the best or safest ways to reintegrate ourselves back into society. Just because they're saying, go ahead, y'all, go and have a good, funky, good time, mean that's necessarily the best way to proceed. So we're going to talk about that today. And I want to say, if you have not been here this season, shame on you, but you're here now, and that's all that matters. This, my friends, is the bell of purpose. It means when I ring it, something has come out of somebody's mouth that deserves an amen, a hallelujah, some speaking in tongues, or something. So easy way is to send some love, some hearts up on the screen. Let them know that, you know what, I just picked up what you dropped off, and I thank you. It's the best way I know of, and the easiest way to become a part of something greater than yourself. And here's the best part of all: it's free, right? So get involved, be a part of the conversation. All right. So Dr. Gomez, I heard sirens and stuff coming up. He always comes riding in the back of a first response vehicle with lights and whistles and stuff going. Did I pull you out of surgery?
Good morning, Loren. How you doing?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I am all right, thanks.
Good. I see you're ready to get to work.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I got a full list of patients in the office today, but I'm ready to just be intentional and help people. Just again, provide service and great medical care.
Amen. And thank you so much for taking time. I know you're busy. How's Tiffany and the two wonderful kids?
Tiffany is doing great. Thanks for asking, Lauren. And the kids, they are just enjoying life. Parenting has been a little more of a challenge, certainly during this time of the pandemic. But we're trying to use the phrase, "When life throws you lemons, you make some lemonade."
Amen to that. And my face should be permanently puckered from all the lemonade I've had to make here lately. I'm not kidding you. Now listen, I know that your daughter is she's not just an average gymnast. She is something really special. And how has this affected her? Because I know she's always out there and competing, and I know she probably misses her workout and her coaches and stuff. But she's got a lot of that stuff at home. I saw her in the basement on it looked like a balance beam, you
Yeah,
know.
There's no
On
doubt we made some investments to help out. I mean, our daughter, we're just great. God has been good and has blessed our daughter with some really, really amazing talent. She's
hmm
a state champion, a former state champion in gymnastics, at least last year, won the state tournament in the floor routine. We actually got the state tournament for Illinois in this year, a week before the shelter in place order in early March. And so
Wow.
we're at the state tournament. She got second place in the floor exercise in the state for her age group, and then fifth place all around. So we were just
Saw
proud
it.
parents.
Yeah.
So during this
Yeah.
time, it's actually the great thing now is that since we've opened up in the right way, actually her gym, her gymnastics studio has opened up in a very socially distanced way. The idea now is that we have a group of teammates, and you're always going to practice with the same teammates. That's a cohort. So if you're in the same cohort, the less likely you are to integrate other factors that may come in and potentially add more risk. Now again, you can't have zero risk for
Yeah.
coronavirus, but you're trying to minimize risk as much as possible. And there's other mitigation strategies at hand too.
Okay. I want to take a moment here just to acknowledge and say good morning to everyone who's here. Now, listen, you guys, now would be a great time. Seriously. Hit the share button on your device, invite some people, start a watch party because a lot of us, and here's why I think you should do that. If there are people out there that you care about and you want to make sure that they're still around this time next year, I know that might sound a bit harsh, but better to be a little overly cautious or harsh now than in the midst of something you can't. There are no do-overs. Let's put it that way. For a lot of things, a lot of decisions that people are making right now. Right, Mark?
There's no doubt. The other phrase besides "when life tosses you lemons, makes it lemonade." The other phrase I like to use during this time frame, and I didn't come with it, but somebody once said, "What you do during a pandemic may seem alarmist, but everything that you do after a pandemic seems inadequate."
Mm, you might have to repeat that before the hour
Yeah,
is over.
I will.
So and what I'm getting at, Mark, is like this is what you remember. I don't know if here's what we saw. I saw a post that just said it all right after the first phase began, like the next day. Someone posted and said, because everybody was like as if it had never happened. A lot of people were like all scrunched up together, and well, even before that happened, you saw the viral video of the kids with the house party here in Chicago. But there were people who were running around saying it's over, the pandemic's over, when it's not over. And so here we are. Every state is different now as far as what part of the relaxing, the reintegration protocol. They're all at different places. Phase 1 here, phase 3 here, phase 0 there, phase 4 over there. Now, people are going to get in their vehicles. People are going to get on buses, trains, boats, airplanes, and start trying to catch up. They just are because they're hungry. Now, can you tell us? Let's start with this. I had a whole list of questions for you today, and I want you guys to ask your questions. Now's the time. Get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Okay. Mark, can we start by talking about some of the best or the safest ways to reintegrate ourselves into society and our social lives as healthy adults? And then, because there's categories as healthy adults, and I'm actually in the high risk thing, but then high risk and elderly, and then children. Because a lot of parents I hear people asking me all the time about, do you think it's okay if I start having play dates or letting little Johnny or Susie go on a play date? She misses her best friend, that sort of thing. So speak to that. Let's start there.
Absolutely. I have to, if I may I make a quick plug? Tomorrow night on my show, Two Health with Dr. G, we're doing a big special, COVID and kids. So all those kind of questions will be answered by myself, amazing pediatrician, and amazing child and adolescent psychiatrist. But I got to throw that plug in 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on my Facebook page at To Your Health DRG. So really, where we're all about.
Do it again.
I know.
No,
I love
but
that. I love the hashtag.
we're going to get that up there. And I'm sorry. Before you, what's the page, Dr. G? Or is it a website?
Yeah.
What is it again?
People can go to my website at www.drmarkgomez.com, drmarkgomez.com for more information. And of course,
Perfect.
my social media handles at To Your Health DRG.
Okay.
So to answer the question, the best way when we talk about reintegration, and I'll start with the kids thing first, because that's probably one of the most common things I'm certainly asked, even in my clinical practice, by the parents of kids. And some of the questions that I even ask myself. The best thing that we could do is still have social distancing, physical distancing as much as possible. The reality is this, that yes, we are still mired in a pandemic, and children are still extremely susceptible. There's like a myth out there that children can't get this. That is an
Mm-hmm.
absolute falsehood. As a matter of fact, according to the CDC, roughly 85,000 kids in this country have tested positive for COVID-19. Now, yes, kids may get a few less clinical manifestations, but the risk is still there. And so we always say you just don't know. And the reality is that kids can certainly pass the infection
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to their parent or grandparent. I just had a case last week of a grandparent. She lives with her daughter. She lives with her grandchildren. The
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren are out and about all the time. The grandmother has sheltered in place. Grandmother has gotten out, tested positive for COVID-19, and I was on the cusp of sending her to the emergency room. We were able to diagnose it, and she actually was able to be treated with supportive measures. But it is still real. The threat's still there. And so, how do you get kids who naturally don't socially distance? Because it's kind of unnatural. I'd probably say, Loren, when back in the day when we were kids, you always want to mingle with people, but you have
Right.
to really enforce these kind of things, and that the risk is still out there.
The color on my face, I look like a beet. I'm just talking to myself. So that is something that a lot of people don't think about. I know I didn't realize so many children were, well, actually we do, because when we go to Iowa, our little nephew's there, the little one, Silas, he's just a little germ bucket, just naturally. I mean, every time we go there, he's got a cold, and we're like, oh boy, Silas is gonna give us a cold. The kids, but they're also so resilient. You know what I mean? They, and so what do you recommend people do? So about this, let's take Illinois, for example. July 1st, things open up a little bit more for us, I believe, right?
Yes, that is correct. July 1st in Illinois, from what I understand, is that we're going to hopefully move to the next phase of reopening, where you're going to be able to actually have some in-restaurant experiences, with restaurants being probably at about 25%
Actually going
capacity.
inside.
Going inside at
I
a
ain't
very
going.
minimal capacity. I believe
Hi,
also
honey.
movie theaters as well too.
Oh Lord, no.
One of the things I want to make clear is that one of the common things that I get asked is like, well, our children should be outside, get that fresh air. It's like fresh air is like the solution for everything. It's not actually the best way to support your immune system. And here's what I will say: the best way to support your immune system is, number one, eat a healthy diet. The diet's got to be predominantly plant-based, whole foods, plant-based diet. Number two, sleep.
Plant-based diet.
Predominantly whole food, plant-based diet. Number two, sleep. Sleep has to be 7 to 9 hours a night on average. If you're a younger child, it's maybe a little bit more than 9 hours, maybe almost 10 hours a night. Number three, exercise. We want to strive to get 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise. That means you break a sweat, get that heart rate up a little bit. Number four, we want to make sure that we have a proper stress management. I always take that moment each and every day to breathe. I call it vitamin O, oxygen. Breathe, relax, let those stressful energies out of you, breathe in new air, energy. And then number five, I would say this: continue to nurture your relationships, having this whole social support. That is important. And you can have virtual connections. I know people are like, that's not real, physical connections.
Right.
Well, you know what? While we're still in this dynamic, as a matter of fact, Loren, it was published by the University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, and Georgia State University several weeks ago. If we did not have social mitigation strategies in play, we would have had 35 times more infected people, more diagnosis, more burden than we have right now. So some people say, well, let's just let everybody just get the virus. Well, the estimate right now is that only about 5% of this country has seen the virus. If you want to talk about something called herd immunity, and that's a phrase that we use that says that a certain amount of the population has either been exposed to a virus or has been vaccinated to now allow for protection for everybody else who didn't. That is 70% is the accepted number typically in herd immunity. We are at 5% people estimated to have seen this virus. If we have 70% of this country see this virus, All hell's going to break loose. Things going to shut down. Hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. Hospitals are already
Hmm.
overwhelmed capacity.
Yeah.
More people will die. So the fastest way to get people to, if we want to have herd immunity, is we have this vaccine, and we'll see how that goes.
So speaking of, what's the status of this vaccine?
So great question. There's a great question, Lord. There's a lot of different companies that have now a vested interest. And one thing I will say is that this virus, this pandemic, has caused an explosion in human ingenuity, in community partnerships,
Hmm.
and an explosion in research firepower. So right now, the vaccines are still being thoroughly developed. Or sorry, I shouldn't say thoroughly developed. Some are in the development phase, but some are actually in the clinical trial phase. A
Okay.
few weeks ago, there was a company called blanking on the name of the company. They have a vaccine. It's called it starts with an M, but I just can't remember the name of it. But anyways,
Okay.
they were the first ones to have the vaccine that's been tested, and their stock price went up, by the way. and,
Well, I'm
and
sure.
yeah, because they announced that in their initial part of the first phase of their trial, that people did respond favorably to show protection against COVID-19. Now the trials have to expand to involve more and more people and follow that up. But hopefully, as the esteemed Dr. Fauci says, we
Yeah.
hopefully may have a vaccine at the end of this year. My personal thought is that'll be early next year.
Early next year. Awesome. Great tips there, Dr. G. Uh, Going over to the phone lines, if you will, the comments. Donna says here in Alabama, the mask wearing is split completely along party lines. Who knew? I didn't. Destiny, I'm putting this back up again. It warrants a second run through. The world is opening up. However, the virus is still very present, so be safe. Absolutely. Ringing the bell on that. Thank you, Destiny. Shelly misses having her grandkids over. We all have a lot of things for that list. I miss you list. And then here's something. Who said this? Destiny. Destiny says kids don't quite understand the risk regardless of how much they are preached to. Then there are parents that are not taking it serious, even though the data is clear. In these cases, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Absolutely. So, doctor, um, how are you handling? Oh, I read yesterday, Donna says that the young woman featured as the first clinical trial participant just died. Oh, that I didn't know either. Oh, here's something else. Shelly says, I just found a fabulous free website called, I can't even say that. What is that? Sync Tuition. It has meditations specifically for the anxiety people are feeling these days. Oh, Shelly, drop the link in. That could help. I'll check it out and see what I think and come back and give you guys a Yelp review. Mark, let's talk about your own kids and play dates and this and the other. How are you and Tiffany proceeding with that? Because
So,
you know the kids are like, what happens when they get wind that so and so just had a sleepover? How come I can't?
one of the things that I've been approaching it as, since I am around people and around patients all the time, we've actually limited that almost essentially 100%. Because I have risk. And so, as I'm around with patients, I want to keep my risk as low as possible. I don't want to transmit that risk to anybody else. So again, I go home, I cohort in home. So my cohort is Miss Tiffany and the two kids. There have been times that some neighborhood kids have wanted to come over. They see us in our yard and want to come over, and we just have to tell them, like, listen, I'm a physician. I'm around COVID people. I don't want to have my cohort be disrupted and potentially add risk to your child or to you. So we've been pretty clear with our neighbors, for better or for worse. I mean, there's stories now where some physicians will say, "Oh, I've been isolated from my neighbors, and now they're doing trips without me, and I feel left out because my husband's or my wife is a physician." But for us, we've been focusing on things that we can do. I will tell you this: one of the things that I've gotten from this pandemic is another kind of level of connection with my daughter. And actually, she and I work out together. And so I work out with an 8-year-old. And by the way, she's kicking my butt.
I believe it.
Because she is an elite gymnast. But it's like I would have never had that opportunity if there wasn't a pandemic, because I'm busy working my butt off. And now she will remember this for the rest of her life.
Oh, I just got chills.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Mark. That's a great point.
just gets me.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's important that we all look for those things that we would have missed completely had we not been forced to sit those butts down for a minute and truly appreciate. That's the thing that I think Brian and I agree the most on as far as our personal experiences during this pandemic is that it really has it validated a lot of things we've been doing right anyway. You know what I mean? Because our lifestyle did not really change that much as far as this household. But it did when it came to our friends, of course, and our social life and our family thing. So it has forced us to pick up the phone or we do family game nights, virtual game nights and stuff like that, which has really, really been a great thing. So I feel you on that. Now, Mark, let me ask you this one. Because a lot of people, the mindset of today's COVID-19 participants, all of us, it seems right now there are they're like the stars. There's so many different mindsets now. I mean, back at the beginning, we were all and then in the middle, everybody was like, "Okay, I'm in. I'm not. I don't. I'm not. I get it now about the mask. I get it about the hand sanitizer. You know, because once we got on the other side of the toilet paper and the hand sanitizer, because I was stalking Jewel, I was out there at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting in the parking lot, and you know what I mean. And if somebody would have gotten out of their car and tried to run and get in line in front of me, I probably would have had to fight. You know, because I wanted that toilet paper that bad. Uh, so our mindset has changed continually as we move down this path. Mike, I want you to talk about, if you could, what's happening now, because like I said, there's all these different things. What is the best way, Mark, to get right with what's happening? Is it a personal decision as far as, okay, let's go out and eat? Is it a personal decision with the gyms that might open back up? How do you feel about social distancing? Okay, because here's the thing. I saw people before they even started realizing that really shocked me because, there are no fences here in our cul-de-sac, right? So you can see through yard. And I saw people on their decks with friends from church or whatever. And we were like, they're not even wearing masks. Oh my God, they're not, there's a judgmental kind of thing going on. So anyway, is there a right or a wrong way to be doing this right now? Should we still what should we still be practicing to the nth degree as far as protocol?
Absolutely. So, we'll echo your comment that a lot of people just can't be personally inconvenienced, and that's the
Ooh.
way I see it. And a lot of people may have some troubles working on more deep connections, and a lot of our connections are very superficial. And it's almost like the human brain can't get to that level. So somebody says, "Oh my gosh, I want to go to a bar and meet random people," and that's how they get their kicks. That's a very superficial thing, and I question what somebody's purpose may be in their life purpose and their life meaning. This is the time to nurture deep relationships. We have a lot of superficial stuff, but if something happens to your dear sibling, you're going to put it out on Facebook that your dear sibling may have passed. You might have 400 I'm sorry's, but how many of those are really meaningful? How many connections do you really have? And so I think that's one of the challenges. So people will make these decisions and will say me, 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 and not think about the greater good. Us as healthcare professionals, and certainly me as a primary care physician, is I want to make sure that we don't have to go through a second shutdown, or we don't have to go through a second wave, and we don't have to see more needless death that we've seen from this virus. So the best thing, people could still socially distance. If you have to go out of the house, that's fine. If you go to the house, but make sure you bring a mask. And you can go to places. I mean, yes, we've all been to the grocery store. You can do that kind of stuff. I don't think you're ever going to see again, Loren. Remember those days back before the pandemic? You'd be in the grocery store line and you all up on the person that's checking out next to you. Like you're looking at their groceries and everything. And like, that looks pretty good. We're not going to go back to that. We've already been conditioned now that we will stand 6 feet apart at a grocery store checkout line. That's not going to go back.
You think that won't change?
I don't think that's going to change. So at least I know I'm not going to change it. I don't think the days of being up on somebody at the grocery checkout line or somebody standing in line at the movie theaters or whatever. I think those days are long gone because I think we've now realized the risks that are out there.
Well, here's a great little game we're going to play before we go to break with you. I'm going to name something, and we're going to call this little section, what would you do? Okay. And I
Excellent.
mean you personally.
Okay,
What would
me.
you
All
do?
right, I got you.
So
Put
you
me on
can
the spot. I
say,
love it. I love it.
would you do this? Yes or no? And it's
Yeah.
not based on what they're saying you can do if you've been given permission. Even with permission granted, what would you do?
All right.
So first one is airline travel, and we're talking in the next 30 days.
Okay.
Airline travel, yes or no?
I'm gonna say no.
Still having gloves handy.
Still have a gloves handy. I want to say yes, and I will say when say you go to, I keep a pair of gloves in my glove compartment.
Me
If I need
too.
to go pump gas, for example, I will put on the gloves and I will dispose the gloves right away. Remember those days, Laura? You pump gas and then you eat a sandwich. And
Be digging all in your eyes and
yeah,
stuff
yeah, you're
like
rubbing it
that.
all in there. So I think that's going to change. So I still highly recommend people have gloves in handy just in case. The thing is, like, though, you don't want to wear gloves and then touch a door handle and then wear gloves and then touch another door handle because you're actually transmitting potentially germs that way. You want to have fresh pair of gloves. Once you use it, dispose of it immediately and then always get
Oh,
a new pair.
okay. So I saw on Facebook and someone was like, you don't have to change your gloves every time. Just put some hand sanitizer on them before and flip them inside out. And
Yeah, yeah.
then,
If I were to see my patient and I wore gloves and then I flipped them inside out to continue an exam, that is a bad thing because you can't say that you've neutralized every germ on the inside of on your palm and then you
yes.
flip it out. You cannot convincingly say that you've neutralized every germ. The best way, the thing that should be done after we wear gloves and we take them off, we should, if we don't have it available, we should immediately wash our hands for 20 seconds with soap and water. That's ideally how it should be done.
So that
We
was
know
one of
that's
the
not a
things
reality.
on the list. Are you still, yes or no, still washing hands 20 seconds or longer?
Yes, the answer is yes. I see patients in my clinical practice, even in my home. I'm doing it all the time. Always wash. You can never get wrong with washing, and don't touch your face.
Okay. Now you're going out on the front lines. Do you have that that what do you call it? What would you call that? Honey, what would you call that when you people that like wait out in the garage and strip their clothes off and spray
Oh, I do.
Lysol?
I do that when I get home. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I strip my clothes
Yeah,
off. The clothes go. That's why I wear
yeah.
smart scrubs. Clothes go off, and then I immediately go upstairs and shower.
Okay, so of course you have people that are on the front lines,
Yes.
people at grocery stores and da 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 da, that come into close proximity with people, even through a shield or whatever, should still practice that safeguard before bringing anything into their home for the
If
rest of
they
the
if
family.
they if they want to be truly proactive, then the answer is yes. We know the reality is that the minimum they could do is when they get home, the first thing to do is if they're not changing their clothes, is
Mm-hmm.
immediately wash their hands for 20 seconds.
Okay. Next one. What would you do? A gathering that has more than 10 people, say 15, and you get there and you see and you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, there's 50. Tiffany, there's 18 people here. It's only supposed to be 10. That means there'll be 20 with us. Do you stay or do you go?
Well, if you can properly socially distance, I know people have that itch to do something, and we have to understand that that's going to happen. If you cannot physically socially distance, then I would question whether or not you should be there. And so, me personally, I would not do that at this time.
Okay. Um, Follow-up appointments and elective surgeries and things at hospitals. Should we wait a little bit, or because they postponed? I had my final follow-up for my knee surgery. Like the last one, and I had an entire tap dance routine ready for them. This was way back in March. I'm serious because they were always bragging about me, so I was going to really blow it up. And now they canceled it. They canceled it back then in March, and they moved it all the way to August.
Mm.
So even when they're calling back now, they're putting it way out. And I was like, I wonder if that's because they're backlogged or are they like, this is their appointment social distancing. So what would you say to people that are like, now I think I'm going to get that lipo. I'm going to go in and get that LASIK surgery. Is it okay or should they wait?
So great question. Your physician's office is almost certainly open by this time and accepting patients. Now, in a little bit of a different way, I know what we're doing in our clinical practice. We have screeners at the door taking temperatures with touchless scanners, touchless thermometers, and asking a series of questions. And so we want to control the amount of physical bodies in the potential space that you're in.
Okay.
So as far as doctor's office, yes. As far as elective surgeries, we call them elective because you don't necessarily have to get them done urgently.
Right.
Now, if there's an urgent thing, yes, we want you to get that taken care of. But it's certainly the person's decision if they want to wait for their knee replacement or their hip replacement or their hernia repair. But talk more with your physician. But your physician's office is open. Hospitals are open for business. Let's do it. We got to still keep health going on, and we want to make sure that people are as healthy as possible.
Okay. Now, here's a place. I just added this to the list, but I'm a little like, when I hear my family members say, "Oh, girl, I'm going to get my nails done. It's been months." Or people with haircuts, needing haircuts. Brian was going to ask me to cut his hair. Thank God he was able to go and get it done because it wouldn't have been pretty. But nail salons, hair salons, and here's one I just added in: tattoo parlors. Young people love to go get those tattoos. What about those places? Stay away or run in and sit your butt down?
So I'll have to say that I've advised my patients if there can be some, again, we can't have zero risk, but if there are some mitigation strategies in place, for example, the employee there has gloves, a face shield, or just a mask, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's proper social distancing, physical distancing in between customers, or physical barriers that have been erected. Then you go at your own risk. There's no doubt about that. Of course, if you go, make sure that you're washing hands. Make sure that you are wearing a face mask as well too. But I understand that sometimes people got to do these things, and I understand as we're opening up more, we can still open up, but it's got to be done in a safe way. And I will say this: if the numbers start rising, we've already seen it in some of the southern states that have opened up. The number of coronavirus cases have gone up dramatically. Houston, for example, is literally one of the latest hot spots in this country where the cases are exploding. And the last thing you want to do is cripple that health system. A lot of people may think that their hospital can handle just about anything. This virus has shown that there are inequities from hospital system to hospital system. Some hospitals can handle things. Everybody can probably handle a broken finger, but not everybody can potentially handle a COVID-19 case because there might be a shortage of ICU beds. They might not have the resources, just like how not every hospital can handle a major stroke. We think there's equity, but there's not.
Okay, great info there. Thank you, Mark. Last question before we go to break. Health clubs. I know they're about to open ours back up, and Brian and I are just simply giddy because, every time we walk through certain areas of the house, we hear the theme song to Weight Watchers start playing, and we're like, what the hell? And we're really excited about that, but to be honest, a little concerned as well. What should it look like when you walk into a health club?
It should look completely different from what you remember. We got to dust the cobwebs off our memory, our brains at a time, but it should look different. There should be barriers that are erected. There should be even more visible sanitation protocols or sanitizers for you to do. Employees there should be wearing masks. So again, sometimes we just have to be smart about it. You can probably go to your health club, but it's going to look different. Even the locker room might even look different.
Right.
Although I would encourage people to just, if they do go to their health club, if they're done, if you have to go to work, then you have to go to work. You have to shower. But like if you can shower at home in your own controlled environment, yes, please do so.
Okay, and we feel good because we switched from Lifetime about a month before COVID, and we switched over to the gym at your hospital.
Yes.
Yeah, so
let's see how
ought to be top of the line.
Yeah, they should be. Your hospital health club should be the model for how it's
absolutely. Yay! Thank you, Jesus. Okay, when we return, you guys, we're going to get to some of your questions, but we're also going to ask Dr. Mark about the my burning question is if he feels that the recent onslaught of protests around the country has done something to undo all of the social distancing and the protocol that had been in place for the last few months. And is that going to contribute to something that might not be pretty come this fall? We'll be right back. Okay, and we're back today with Dr. Mark Gomez. He's my guest today. And we're talking about everything about how to stay healthy, how to make sure we're doing the right thing, and just processing the options that are available to us as the restrictions of the lockdown loosen around the country. It boils down to what you feel inside is best for you, and also combined with informed information. And that's why Dr. Mark is here today to give us some informed information. So a couple of the questions before we get into that other thing that I wanted to ask you about. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Destiny. Destiny says, thank you for your continued support and service, Doc. Um, Donna says that she had back surgery just after Memorial Day and it was very scary. Let's see here. What is this? I'm in Alabama, so you can guess why blocking is my new normal. Let's see. Oh, here's somebody. It should encourage buying gym equipment for the home, Donna says. Let's see here. So those are the questions. So I want to get into this next thing, Dr. Gomez. The civil unrest and all that's happened. When we look at the pictures, Brian and I were looking at something on our phones just last night, and it was in Hollywood, California. And it was one of those 3D posts, so you can move it, and as far as you could see, just packed in like sardines. And it's been going on for what, 3 weeks, a month now since the George Floyd incident. How do you feel? What did you all say as health providers? Like, did you go, oh my God, is this something we need to be concerned about that may spike some numbers leading into the fall?
So there's no doubt, as a physician, I do worry about what we're going to see as we continue to sift through the data on new coronavirus cases, and you're looking for exposure or contact tracing. So there's been images that have been certainly seen since the George Floyd murder of people gathering, but there's been so many images of people that I believe that have been appropriately doing so with face mask use, sanitizing. But yes, there certainly may have not been some physical distancing. But I think, again, when physical distancing is not possible, that's where your mask comes into place and sanitizing protocols. Only time will tell as we sift through the data on new cases of COVID-19.
Because here's the deal, Mark, I know, okay, I'm going to just speak from my own mindset. When I'm watching, I'm like, well, how come nobody is saying anything about all these people crunched in there together, but they're still saying 10 people or less? And here's another thing. People take breaks from the mask. Oh, it's too hot. I can't breathe. So they pull it down for just a second, thinking that that's okay. In close proximity, probably not. If you're out walking a trail, okay, I get it. But so how long do you think it will take, Mark, for us to start seeing? Because, they had them all over the country. Washington, D.C., New York, every major city that I'm aware of, and even small places like here. We had them right here in Naperville. When do you think if something were going to be adverse as far as what just happened, how long do you think it'll take for us to start seeing that?
I will tell you, I want to just comment on your first point when people may take down the mask.
Yeah.
What we know is that somebody needs to be exposed. A brief mask down to take a sip of water as you can breathe in air right there is probably not going to have you exposed to the novel coronavirus, COVID-19.
Okay.
Turns out that people need to have about 10 minutes of continuous exposure to properly infect. So in a millisecond or a few seconds, even a minute or so is probably not going to be enough to inoculate somebody with the virus. And again, we're looking at continuous exposure for typically up to about 10 minutes, and then somebody would have properly inoculated themselves. The virus gets internalized and cause destruction.
Okay.
But I think that we have to look at the data. The thing is, like, we just don't know. And so we have to kind of keep a pulse on that one. I think as healthcare professionals, we're not going to let up because we see the threat. The threat is still there. The threat still doesn't, the virus still does not discriminate.
Okay.
And that the data numbers will not be down. I mean, we hope that the numbers don't go up, but we have to prepare for the worst. But at the same time, when I was watching some of those protests, and here I am, as my physician hat says, we got to be careful about social distancing. But my personal connection as a Black man, as a father, as a Christian, as just everything I do, a husband, I wanted to be on that line as well too, because the systemic abuse, the inequities that are still there, that have been there for 400 years now, are still prevalent, and so people are hurting. I understand that. And when I take off my scrubs, when I take off my stethoscope, I'm just a black man.
Mhm.
I may have a little bit of privilege because I'm a physician, but at the end of the day, I'm still a black man who's 41 years old, almost 42, y'all.
Right?
41 years old, and that could be just me. So I understand that pain and that discrimination. Um,
Yeah.
so I understand that, but so
Yeah.
the one time of me, it's like I gotta have my physician hat, but also as a black man, I understand what they're doing, and you
Hmm.
gotta rise up.
Amen. Good words there. Good words. Mark, when is your birthday, by the way?
My birthday is September 2nd, y'all. So I expect
Ah, you said
a
almost.
whole bunch of virtual gifts and hugs coming my
Right.
way.
I thought yours, I said he must be in July because my birthday's on the 4th of July.
Get
So,
out of here! I did
yeah,
not know
coming up in
that.
a few weeks.
Hey, get it?
50 something. I don't even remember.
Hey, stop
I
counting. It's
think
all
I'm
right. You're
58.
you're healthy. That's the important thing. That's
I'm
what we want.
trying. I'm giving it my all. Now, two questions. Well, not two. One question about two different places. Because we're not hearing much about it in the church. In the church, I just gave up one of them. In the press, we did hear when the churches were like, "I don't care. We're gonna have service. Take us to court." Um, Churches, I'm assuming they're going to start letting people come back more and more, not just the ones who say we're going to do it anyway, but also churches. And also, if you can talk about those of us who have elderly family members inside of assisted living centers, nursing homes, that sort of thing. I'm not hearing anything about, as we go into the different phases, when it will be okay for people to go and visit them. So, have you heard anything about those two places?
So great thing. I'll start with the elderly, our elderly loved ones first.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, that it's going to be, this is the new norm. There's going to be a lot of restriction. If once visitation is allowed again, it's going to be extremely limited, and there's going to be checks and balances all over the place. Now, of course, that depends on your on your facility. Some facilities have more resources to do that than others, but expect the new normal as there's going to be still a lot of physical distancing, people limitation as far as visitor policy restrictions,
Sure.
and heavy cleaning and disinfection. When the virus was at its peak, and again we're moving down. When I talk to my ICU docs that are taking care of people on ventilators, half of those people are people that came from the nursing home. It's very unfortunate because we've let them down. The other half of people that have been hospitalized are people that just didn't socially distance. And then as far as church, I would say this: as I continue to virtually connect with my church, I do see each week I'm seeing a little more people. That's like the band and everything, but they got their cohort, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that church now at least with the Archdiocese of Chicago, they now announce reserve your seat at church
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
in a
saw that.
physically distanced way, and so we'll see how it happens. But I know we want to have a return to some of the comforts that we have. I understand that. We just don't know what it's going to fully look like. And only time will tell if those strategies continue to keep the numbers down.
Right, right. Now, Brian was just mentioning yesterday, I know what he was getting at, even though we said we're not budging until January. We want to get through and that's what we're going into next year. But we have a timeshare, right, in Mexico, and they've been hitting us hard. So, oh, don't worry, come on, book your time, because this is usually right around the time we go now, and then we go around Christmas, and they're like, book now, don't worry, we're set, we're ready for your COVID, your distancing and stuff. And Brian's like, would you think we should consider it? And I was like, absolutely not. And because then you got people from all over the world, and people are doing different things. Do you think it is unreasonable, Mark, to be you know, move over to the closer to the safe side of what is it? Caution. You know, uh, what do you think,
Yeah.
personally speaking?
I do
Not
personally.
professionally,
Personally, I
personally.
think I'm kind of in the same line as you. The mindset is certainly foreign travel. Whenever it's going to happen, is going to be very hard to do because you're right. There's a big X factor with the fact that people are coming from other destinations. There was just New Zealand just today reported their first new cases of COVID-19 in 24 days. And it was when they traced that, it was actually from two women that came from the UK to visit a dying relative. And what happened,
See,
even though New Zealand has in place that when somebody comes in foreign travels, and you've seen that all throughout the European Union now, if you're coming in from a foreign travel, you have to self-quarantine for 14 days. It's mandated. What happened in this case is that the two women applied for an exemption a few days into the self-quarantine to spend time with a dying relative who
yeah,
wound up dying later on that day. And so they were released out into the public. They traveled in private car to visit, but one of the women had mild symptoms, and certainly now they had their first registered virus, two new cases technically. So
right.
we have to be very wary about that. And now they're trying to have protocols that, like, okay, say somebody's in self-quarantine, they travel someplace, you're quarantined for 14 days. Yes, expect to get tested multiple times, maybe
Yeah,
potentially on day 3 and then day 13 or day 14 before you're let out to
yeah, I
go.
ain't
So
trying to go.
countries, we
Mm-mm.
can't be. And so think about us here in the United States. If we open up our borders now, or we go to other places like Mexico, in your case, you have to really think that through. So right now,
Yeah,
I'm
might
still
get there and
advising
can't
people.
come home.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you come home if you're abroad and you come back to the States, back home, you're going to self quarantine for 14 days.
I ain't doing it.
There's no doubt about that. So we have to be very
Right,
careful. So we don't know
right.
what travel's going to look like. We just want to keep those
I
numbers
know
down.
what it looked like. If I can't drive there, I ain't going.
You're like me. It's okay to be a homebody every now and then.
Exactly,
But this
exactly.
this is like, but I love doing this with you. I love that we're connected. I know we're going to connect offline on some other stuff, but
Yes,
this is the time to nurture, to still maintain relationships, even in a virtual way. This can be very meaningful for
it
people.
and it has been.
Yeah,
It has been. I mean, professionally, personally,
yeah,
well, I tell people all the time, since this became, even Brian was like, you don't seem very worried. And I was like, I'm not, I'm concerned,
no,
but I'm not worried because, when I went through 22 homes in the foster system as a kid, I grew up treating every change because every day my world changed, just like the pandemic. I mean, it felt like that when you're an 8-year-old, but everything was a case study. That's how I kept my sanity automatically. And I believe, God gives us internally what we need when we're children because he knows we're the innocent ones. And so I figured if it was good enough for an 8-year-old and it came from God, I might as well change it. If it's not broken, don't fix
amen.
it. All right. So I'm ringing the bell on myself on that one. A couple comments. Donna, thank you for posting this. Just an update. She said this came out in Alabama. Apparently, it looks like there's something about hospitalizations hit a record high. Take
Not
a look at that if
surprising.
you're interested. Shelly Dale says she's a nail technician and we have only slightly opened with temperature control, infection control procedures. We work on the hands and feet germ central. Women are not nice when we turn them away at the door for temperature spike. However, it's necessary for the greater good. Wow. Who
Yes,
knew? Who
yes,
knew? But great to hear that you're doing that. Dr. Jan has a couple things here. She says, we are not going back to our church building until we have strict guidelines. And I know she's very involved in her church and has been for many years. So I know that she means that, and that's
yes.
smart.
That's
And she
very
also says that we canceled our cruise, even though it's not until January of
smart as well.
2021. That's smart as well. For those of you who are coming in on the tail end, hopefully you'll go back and watch all of this on the replay. We're here today with Dr. Mark Gomez, just talking about the best practices in these uncertain times. More now than ever. I really think people need to sit up, listen, lean in, and start making great decisions, better decisions. Don't just run back into the sunset thinking, woohoo, give me a drink. You might end up regretting it. Mark, so as we round the final lap, we have about 8 minutes left. As we round the final lap of this interview today, how would you address what your mindset as far as going into the fall and the winter flu season, and what can we do to be best prepared? Because we've heard rumblings back at the beginning of the pandemic about, when the fall comes, it ain't gonna be pretty because we got a regular flu, and then there's gonna be a resurgence of COVID. What are you thinking, and what are you hearing in the medical field?
Absolutely. So I want to say this: we are expecting a rise in the fall as the temperatures cool down. We typically go inside, or there's more close contact with people.
Mhm.
And I would hope that we've learned a little bit more from this experience because of are sheltering in place and social distancing and having a cohort they can shelter with. But I actually am very concerned because, yes, we're going to have the typical flu season, and that already is very dangerous. But certainly, of course, the coronavirus is way more dangerous, much, much, much more virulent than the flu. And so we're going to be expecting, again, as you have close quarters, people contacting, staying in close contact with each other, we're expecting to see cases rise. So this is more reason why we want to have hopefully a safe vaccine that's out, and we want to continue to be smart about this. The same strategies that we're doing now for mitigation, for reducing risk, should be applied when we get to the flu season. And of course, everybody should get a flu shot.
So we should get the flu shot.
Absolutely, 100%. There's no doubt. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for others. Do it for that parent or that grandparent. Do it for those kids. Do it for that child that may have an immunocompromised state. Do it for your spouse if your spouse is battling cancer. So there's so many reasons to make sure that you have the proper vaccine versus leaving it to chance and potentially ending up with a major hospital bill.
That's a good point right there. That's a good point. Let's see here. So if the virus were to return this fall or winter, will it and the symptoms, will they be the same as we've been experiencing now? Do we still look for the same things to present, or could that be different since it's round two? Does it mutate? What happens?
That's a great question. And I probably say the true answer is we just don't know because of the novelty of this virus. But the things that we're seeing, of course, the still common symptoms that we're seeing, fever, unexplained or persistent fever. We're seeing shortness of breath, cough. We're seeing loss of taste, loss of smell. We're seeing some obscure abdominal symptoms as well in people, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, potential diarrhea. But we're seeing so many different clinical manifestations. We have to think COVID-19 at all times. And I will say this, as you continue to work with your doctor and say you're going to have any procedures done, maybe you're going to have a stress test done, maybe you're going to have elective surgery. You're going to get tested. Expect that to happen. It's already happening now. You're going to get tested 48 hours to 72 hours prior to your procedure or your examination, and you'll be asked to shelter in place very much so during that 40 to 72 hours time frame, because you don't want to go to a party and start kicking it after you test negative for 48 hours and then you get exposed at the party. So expect some of these more stringent guidelines to stick in place. But at the end of the day, we're looking at for your health.
Absolutely. To your health, Dr. G. Because, we've still got those major holidays in front of us where families traditionally come together in droves. Thanksgiving, Christmas. We've got the 4th, and that's outside. So I think people are going to be a little more mindful.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Because they can barbecue, they can be spread out. But
I think so.
What around that Thanksgiving table? Christmas shopping, Christmas, all that. So start now. I believe it's smart to start now, already implementing the mindset inside your family dynamic, so people aren't like, we got to have this. Start conditioning your family about what's important. You don't want to drag grandmama and Uncle Walter over to a death dinner. Let's just keep it real. You don't want to do that. So start now thinking of better ways, alternative ways, safer ways to be able to do it no matter where we're at November and December. Final question is, and I wanted to circle back at the last minute about this, because when you said, explain, because I know I don't know all of it and I want to go and check it out. But at the beginning, when you said plant-based diet and whole food diet, I said, Whole Foods? That's a store. What's he talking about? Diet. Right. So you got about 2 minutes. Tell us about this whole food diet and plant food. Give us a plate.
The basic breakdown of a whole foods plant-based diet is a diet that is the most evidence-based diet to promote longevity and optimal medical health. If we're talking about reversing and or eliminating or preventing chronic disease burden, because reality is this: even though we're mired in a pandemic, the chronic medical disorders that are still afflicting us, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, those are things that have been going on. They're still going on now, and they're all rising. The reality is this: we have to continue to have our mindset change from a disease-based mindset to a lifestyle-based mindset. If we talk about nutrition, we talk about a whole foods plant-based diet. These are things that, of course, are grow from the ground, things that are truly natural in the state of natural that it can be. Your fruits, your vegetables, your nuts, your seeds, your legumes. those kind of things. And I have great resources available on my website
Which is on
for
the
Whole Foods
screen.
plant-based, and that's on the screen. And thank you very much. And
Mhm.
I also will say, Loren, as we're rounding down, so people should do that diet. Ideally, you're doing it probably 80-20 of a Whole Foods plant-based diet, maybe a little bit more. If we're looking at blue zones, people that live the longest on this planet, they probably do a 95% Whole Foods plant-based diet. And I will say one other plug is that all the COVID stuff that we're talking about, Loren, is available on my website. Miss Tiffany redesigned the website just
Okay.
recently, just as a matter of fact, a few days ago. All your COVID content that I've done from shows and podcasts and other kind of tips, they're all
Right
right
here.
there at your fingertips. And again, I have a COVID show tomorrow night, COVID and kids. And then next week, I'm going to do my last COVID show for a while, and that's going to be about COVID and sports.
There you go. So I'm going to leave as we get out of here and the show closer hits the screen. I'm going to leave Dr. Gomez's website up so that you can get it, write it down, commit it to memory. Don't get it tattooed. We already said that ain't a good thing to do. But write it down and get over it. Don't just write it down. Get over it and check it out. Stay informed. Stay healthy. Stay alive.
Yes.
Dr. Gomez, thank you so much for today and everything you do. Thank you for your service and for going out there every day fighting to keep us healthy, safe, and alive. I really appreciate you.
It's always my pleasure, Loren. It's always great connecting with you and speaking to your audience. And just, it's my pleasure to provide a voice and continue to serve. Stay well, my friend.
Same
Always
here. And I'll give you a call. We'll set something
up.
up.
Oh, yeah. We're going to set it up. No doubt. Virtually, of course.
Of course. Okay. Bye now. Take care.
See you, Loren. Bye-bye.
Dr. Mark Gomez, everybody, I want to say thank you so much for joining me here today for today's episode of Bathrobe Moments. Now get out there and do what we do. Love up on everyone you can from a distance, of course, a safe distance. But remember, if you want to be that blessing, find your way to the nearest mirror and see the blessing. Because if you can't see the blessing, how do you expect to be one? Thank you. Meet me here tomorrow morning for the next episode of Bathrobe Moments.